Have fun.
I'm glad that's how the recording started. Have fun.
Have fun.
Okay, well, I am going to stand in for Heather. I admit I'm a pretty lame alternative to Heather, but the sequence or the order of operations here is going to be I'm going to kick us off, talk about a recap, talk about this month, talk about our feature. Will is going to take us through some things that are new with Copilot in the recent days slash weeks. And then Carlos is going to take us through this month's featured conversation or highlighted topic. As you can see on the screen, it's chess club month. So we're nerds. We're in the park playing some chess. Will has done a great job of hiding himself in the image. There's another one coming up where he's also hidden. So keep your eyes open. So thanks, Will, for doing that. I think it's pretty hilarious that we hide you in there, even though you are with us every single month. um, so in the spirit of chess club, I got to asking Copilot some questions. I was like, I feel like AI and chess are probably a lot closer related than one might think because, a long time ago, we had a human get beaten by a machine in, a national chess tournament. And I remember seeing news about that and hearing about that. And I think we talked about it a little bit. It was Deep Blue was the machine that beat Gary Kasparov in chess. So I asked Copilot to kind of recap that for me and give me some learnings about that. It kind of connected it to Turing test, right? But it did say that it was an interesting technique. It was brute force computing power, which I thought, well, that's not quite AI, right? But it's a precursor, I feel like, to AI. I also remember a rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, but the machine made such unorthodox moves that it made the human player doubt and question because that's not a move that a human would ordinarily make. So I asked Copilot about that as well. And it said, yeah, that is what happened. It caused them to like overanalyze and had like a psychological effect, if you will, on the human player because the machine was doing things that he'd never seen before that didn't make sense to him. So that was interesting as well. I feel like we've come a long way since then, and AI now is more of a thought partner. I hope. I feel like, and not so much of an opponent. But that was an interesting little tidbit there for you. So go ask Copilot some questions. I'll take us through our reminders and our recap. Again, will take us through what's new. Carlos is going to take us through understanding agents, and then we'll give you some homework as we normally do. As always, we want to ground ourselves, Copilot term. We want to ground ourselves in what the community is all about. So, what is the purpose of Club Copilot? First and foremost, it's you. We've talked about agents in the past, and you all have asked questions in the chat. And unfortunately, it gets pretty busy. We always exhaust the entire amount of time. That is why we've created a second monthly meeting. You've probably seen invites come out about that, where we get to talk purely about use cases and Q&A. So we're going to double up our meeting frequency. And if you want to come just do open Q&A, that second monthly meeting is where that will be. And that is ultimately all for you. That's why we do this. That's what we're here for. This is end user information slash training. There's a lot of crossover here from MS Office Hours community, and those are a bunch of technical folks. If you're a super technical person, don't ask super technical questions because that's what we do on Office Hours. And this is a community really geared towards end user enablement and skilling. We want our folks that are in the classroom, in the research lab, in the office. We want them to get a lot from this. We want them to get news and updates. So that's what we'll cover. We'll do our feature focus, and we're not technical support. We try, but I would say there's no expectation that if you post a technical question like, hey, XYZ is broken, there's no like service level agreement that we're going to get it fixed in a certain period of time. This is really just to teach you how to do stuff. Do a February recap real quick. We talked about Copilot chat. We also talked about your use cases. So there was a use case form that we provided, and we had about, I don't know, roughly 50 use cases that were submitted to us about, hey, these are some things that we wish we could use Copilot for, or we'd like to understand more about how to do Copilot type things for this business process. So I went through and showed how to do that with both M365 Copilot as well as Copilot Chat. So if you want, that recording is stored in our team. Heather also uploaded that recording to the public internet. It's on a YouTube channel that she created. She felt like that one was worthy of kind of showing people what Club Copilot is all about. So you can share that one with your friends if they're thinking about coming by. Maybe it's dangling a carrot to get them to come on over and hang out with us a little bit more. But yeah, don't forget the team is there. The team is where you can post questions. I get those. I try to answer those as quickly as I can. We'll post some prompting, tips and tidbits and stuff like that in there. So check out the team. Don't forget that that exists as well. That is the end of like the kickoff. So my part is done. I'll be in the chat to kind of help answer questions as much as I can. Will, if you want to take over, you're going to take us through some what's new stuff, right?
Yeah. There we go. So I do want to mention, so Heather told me last week, 2 weeks ago, that she was posting that up on YouTube. And my immediate thought was, I will forever be on the internet as a baby with a diaper on that first slide. So that's going to be fun. That's something to show my kids later. What's new in Copilot? We have actually a lot of new stuff that came out. I was demoing yesterday with a customer and found 5 new things that weren't there the week before. Some of them are in here, some of them aren't. We'll save those for next Club Copilot. But some huge things in Word. We went from about 80,000 words that Copilot can summarize to 1.5 million words that Copilot can summarize.
I'm sorry,
so that
how
was
many?
huge. 1.5 million words.
I just want to make sure I didn't mishear that.
Correct. It went from about 160 pages to about 3,000 pages that Copilot can now summarize. So that was huge. We also got improved coaching within Word. So if you ever use the coaching feature in Outlook, Word has that too, and we've improved that a whole lot. But we'll dig into some of that here in a bit. The PowerPoint got speaker notes, translations. There was one other thing we got in PowerPoint too, and I didn't write it down. I'll find it. I'll put it in chat later. Excel got the ability to ground in tenant information. So before, Excel could only look at the web, or what is it called? The workbook that you were in. And that was it. Now it can actually go out there and you can reference other files in your tenant. And there are also prompt suggestions in Excel. So we'll get into that a little bit here. The last one here, Dwayne wanted me to add this one in here. Oh, didn't mean to go forward. I didn't even notice this. He had to point it out to me. There is, when you're inserting a file or a meeting or something in Copilot Chat, there is now a search bar in there. So if you can't find the file you're looking for, you can actually do a search from there now, which is really handy. I'm glad he showed that to me. All right, let's dive into these a little bit more now. So Word, like I said, we now are supporting up to about, and I say about 1.5 million words long, which is about 3,000 pages. So like I said before, it was 80,000 words before that. I think it was around this time last year, we went from 20,000 to 80,000. So it's just kind of getting this exponential growth that we're able to start to summarize in here, which is kind of cool. But that's not only going to save us time for users who are dealing with extensive documents, but also is going to enhance their productivity by allowing for quicker insights and decision making. And then you have this improved coaching, which is not just going to look at grammar and spelling checks. It's going to help you give or to write better and give you ideas to improve the way you write. So go try that out next time you're in Word.
Will,
in PowerPoint, yes.
Sorry, I interrupt a lot.
That's
just,
okay.
Want to throw some commentary in there. Similar to our upcoming feature about understanding agents, I'll drop a link to it in the chat. But we also announced that when you're grounding your agent on a Word document, the Word document can be 512 megabytes, which I was wondering, I'm like, why would we do that? But now
That's
that you
wild.
say 1.5 million words in a single document, it's starting to click. It's starting to make sense. So I'll drop that doc in the chat here in just a second.
Which, Dwayne, by the way, that went up, right? Because it was much lower before. It wasn't 512. I think it was
It was 5 megs or something. It was tiny before, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very tiny. Yeah. Okay.
And that is for work chat, right, Dwayne? That limit?
I was referring to agents. I'll drop a knowledge source documentation. I'm grabbing it right now.
Gotcha. For PowerPoint, moving on. This one was huge. There's actually 2 really nice ones in here, and both of them I tested out today. The first one is you can now translate your deck into different languages. We support, I think, it's right there, 40 different languages, and that will translate the whole deck, not just the text on there, but if you have Word objects on your slide, it will also do those as well. So test that out. It should do your whole deck at once, or alternatively, you could say in the prompt, just translate this slide, and it should do that as well. The next one, I don't have a slide for this one, but the ability to put in speaker notes. So if you created a deck before using Copilot, it does create speaker notes. But if you already have a deck made, there was no way for Copilot to generate speaker notes after the fact. So we have now added in that feature, and it actually works pretty well. It looks at what the content that's on the slide, and it generates a paragraph or so of speaker notes. So actually, I'll grab a screenshot and put it in here. There's generated speaker notes for this slide, so you can kind of see what they look like. And this works the same way as translation. You can have it do your entire deck, and it will go through and create speaker notes for every slide in there, or you could specify which slides you want speaker notes to be created for. I also tested if I already had speaker notes, what does it do? And it will put this generated by Copilot speaker notes above it, put that little line like you see, well, I'm not sure if it's in my image or not, but there's a little line, and then it would have your existing speaker notes there. So you're not going to lose any of that content you might have had.
It will. I want to just clarify something that was really, really interesting here from a speaker notes perspective. When you're using Copilot, right, and you're in there, you're just kind of you can go into the sidebar basically of Copilot inside of PowerPoint, and you can go and say, hey, create speaker notes for me. But you can also ask it for just ideas, right? So this is one of the powers of M365 Copilot as a thought partner to be able to say, if I was to create speaker notes, give me some ideas of what you would put in there, right? That way it's not automatically just putting it in there for you. You could also go in there and just like see what it would say, tweak it a little bit, make it better and such. So lots of options for you to do there in that sidebar as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of just doing this when we were preparing this deck just a couple minutes ago, weren't we? We were trying to come up with a title for your section. And I put a prompt in and said, hey, look at slides 7 through 14 and recommend a title for that section. So
I don't know what you're talking about, Will. We've had this deck prepared for
that's minutes. I meant
we
days.
Totally weren't working on this presentation right before this call, right?
Never. This is what happens when Heather leaves us. Like, man, don't tell her.
Yeah.
Oh, we are recording, right? Okay, good. That would have been horrible.
Hey, this is. Right. I just want to say one thing over here. I got to tell you, as a multilingual person, as a person who is an immigrant of this country and has parents who were non-English speakers, there is nothing more frustrating, whether you're in higher ed or K-12, is to deal with students or parents who have a language barrier. And this whole concept, I will tell you, I know we use this religiously inside of Microsoft, or we're translating presentations. We have incredibly genius teams coming out of Japan, coming out of China, coming out of Canada, coming out of like all over the place, right? Multi-languages being thrown over here, and we use this feature all the time. But even from an EDU perspective, being able to just translate these PowerPoints and sharing it out with parents or sharing it out with students and making them a little bit more comfortable in there. I just wanted to hit that home. This is a big, big deal. Not all of us have a shirt that says, hey, I only speak this language. in here. So I'm really, I try really hard to hit the inclusivity button as much as I can. I just think this is such a great feature, Will.
Yeah, and Marge asked a good question in chat. If we had a video in our PowerPoint, could it generate speaker notes based on the content of that video? And it won't do that yet, but we do have the ability to, you can upload that video and you can get notes out of that. And then you could take those notes and put it into PowerPoint. So you could still save a lot of time using Copilot with that video. It just won't be inherent in PowerPoint. Not yet anyway. I think it would definitely be a good feature to add in here.
Yeah, PowerPoint will caption a video.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the framework is there for that, because ultimately we need the text, right?
Right. All right, in Excel, this is actually where I saw some new features when I was demoing. So we do have these improved recommended prompts. So before, when you opened up that Copilot sidecar in Excel, you had some, but they were very limited. It was basically show me insights, and I don't even remember what they were. They weren't that great. I mean, they were good for what they were, but they weren't really too robust. But we've added in a lot of more examples of ways to use Copilot in in Excel. So you'll see 4 here on the screenshot, and then there's a button that says more examples, and that will refresh those 4 with 4 new ones. So next time you're in there, check them out, see what all is possible now, because a lot of those represent new features in Excel with Copilot. So that's kind of cool to see. The second thing I want to point out here, and it's kind of, you don't really know it's there. This is where you can access that graph grounded content. And it's not just graph grounded, it's also web content. So if you click on, I think it's this icon, you do graph grounded. If you click on this one, you can turn on and off web content. So if you're wanting your Excel to be able to reach out there and do a Bing search, pull stuff back, maybe compare data you have in your Excel spreadsheet, you can have that turned on. If you're wanting to compare it to another document, you have that graph grounded ability in there too. So that's really cool. There's also some improvements done to Python, but I'm not a Python person, so I don't want to talk about it and sound like an idiot in front of you all. So I'm going to give you a link where you can read about it in more detail. And then if you have any questions, do reach out and we'll make sure you get in touch with someone who is a guru with that stuff. I'm also trying to work on getting us some guest speakers to start talking about some of these applications in more depth. So be looking forward to that over the next several months. Dwayne, I think that's, oh no, one more, I don't have featured here. Next time you're in Excel as well, click into a cell that has some data and you're going to see a little Copilot icon pop up right above that cell. If you click on that, you're going to get a lot of options on things you can do, like conditional formatting. It'll suggest a conditional formatting rule for your data, or a formula or something like that. It can create a new column and it gives you suggestions on ways to make your workbook even better. So check that out next time you're in Excel as well.
Or explain an error, right?
Do what?
So or explain an error.
Or explain an error. It actually is really great at that. I've used that quite a bit. Yep. All right, that is it for me. Next, we have our feature, which I believe is going to be Carlos.
Awesome. I'm going to take control. I feel like I didn't put it into the chat, but I'm going to say it. I feel like your message here, Will, was click on the buttons and find out what happens over here, especially in the Excel, especially in the bottom. You actually pointed out a couple of buttons that I don't really mess with. All right, here we go, guys. We got plenty of time. I'm going to try to not rush through this. We had great comments that took place last call. And one of the things that we're always looking for is, hey, new ideas, right? We have stuff that we want to share with you because it's new, things come out, it makes sense. But a lot of times we want to make sure we're trying our absolute best to cover some of the stuff that you want to hear. Now, remember what Dwayne said when he started off this call. This is really more end user stuff. So we're going to try to avoid the management stuff. I'm going to really go deep into understanding agent messaging and just the different agents, and exactly that was one of the questions that was brought up. But I'm gonna say this multiple times. If you really want to talk about the best way to manage agents and what that process is going to look like and create a strategy, please reach out to your local account team, your Microsoft team. talk to them, set up some time with them, or a partner. We have amazing Microsoft partners out there as well that would be more than happy to kind of work with you to say, hey, here's what we're working with based off your use case. Here's what makes the most amount of sense and such. But here we go. All right. So the question that was brought up was, and I beat up Dwayne and Will as much as I could. I was like, we got to talk about this next call, which was the messages and understanding message packs versus pay-go, and how much messaging is this consuming, or you might see the phrase burning. It's not really burning, but whatever. Like, it's these types of things that we wanted to kind of go through. All right. So as we look at this, the first thing, I'm going to totally get in trouble over here because I changed some of these slides over here and put my own content in here. But I want to start off with the difference between message packs and pay-go. Today, we're going to talk about Agent Builder and SharePoint agents. Those are the main two that I want to talk about, because this is what can live associated with your M365 Copilot licenses. So in Agent Builder, for example, coming very, very soon, not right now, but super soon, like any day, hopefully, you're going to be able to kind of go and work with messaging packs that are associated with agents. Messaging packs are, one pack is about 25,000 messages, right, per month is what it comes out to. This is a tenant-wide messaging pack. I wanted to highlight, this is not the exact, I should put a disclaimer, so I'm going to say a disclaimer in here. For exact pricing, please talk to your reseller. They're going to give you exact pricing. So I was kind of guesstimating here as close as I can. It's a ballpark of about $121. This is the EDU price for a messaging pack for 25,000 messages, which is, my personal opinion, pretty affordable. This is pretty good. This is something we can play with. I also wanted to call out that a lot of documentation that you'll see out there says it as $200. $200 is your commercial pricing. So this wasn't our thing. I would just thank you, whoever made this decision to allow EDU pricing in here, special EDU pricing for messaging packs. So I love the fact that it's it's $121. Now, there is a pay-as-you-go. You might see the terminology be called pay-go in there, or pay-go, or however else you want to write it. And in here, when we're dealing with pay-go, I want to be very, very clear. Pay-go is tied to an Azure subscription. That means you're going to have a specific subscription that you go and you align to pay-go. And this could be used on any of the, I'm going to call them the big three: SharePoint agents, Agent Builder, and Copilot Studio. Okay. Now, when you go and you set up this pay-go, it comes out to about ballpark about a penny per message is what you're looking at. And if you do have a Mac, I know that there's a lot of customers who do have a Mac agreement. It can actually go and decrement from that Mac, right? Because this is, at the end of the day, the Mac is tied to an Azure subscription. So you can go and you can associate it with that. So I wanted to make sure you understood.
What's a Mac?
I can't even tell you to save my life what the actual word stands for over here, but it's basically a very special kind of more of a long-term kind of agreement that has a lot more aggressive type discounting possibly that can be done from an ES perspective. So instead of having like your typical ES, which is, I believe, about 3 years, and you have an anniversary every year. In there, so normally it's about 3 years. Some ES agreements could be technically 5 years. So Macs are a little bit more like a 5-year type a deal, where it's really where you kind of understand a little bit more of your overall environment around Azure and modern work and everything else, and how you're going to go and how you're going to spend money. Okay, or follow Marge's correct answer, which is Microsoft Azure consumption commitment. There we go. So there's pay-as-you-go, there's messaging packs. You do not need to worry about those two right now if you have an M365 Copilot license, because that's going to really help out, from an agent perspective. When you have an M365 Copilot license, you're able to build, you're able to consume these two. So check, check, check. That is the easy button, but not everybody does, and we totally understand. That's why we have agents. So the next thing I wanted to bring up over here is the concept of all these phrasings and that get tossed around. And we're going to share, I think, Dwayne, we're going to share these slides with them, right? I believe we're going to PDF this. We're going to try our absolute best.
Yep.
Yeah,
we'll put it into the team. There you go. Web grounded versus classic answers versus generative answers, tenant graph grounding, autonomous actions. Like when I first saw this, I was like, geez, like, why can't we keep this simple? What does what's going on? And what I wanted to do is just dive in deep into one simple example of exactly what each one does. All right. So first one is web grounded answers. Web grounded answers, when I'm dealing with whether it's Copilot Studio or Agent Builder, I can go and I can associate this with what we call web grounded. Web grounded in Copilot Studio is saying, hey, my source of truth is going to be this website. I am grounding it on that specific website. Okay. With Agent Builder, it's a little bit different. It's kind of cool because I could also use web grounding from saying, hey, I want you to help me answer my question, but use the internet as the source of truth, right? Give me all these resources in there so you can do web grounding inside of Agent Builder as well. Okay, so this is really, really important. Just wanted to kind of explain what web grounding is. A lot of people turn it on, a lot of people turn it off. It depends on what you want your agent to act and how you want it to perform and things like that. You're going to see other slides in here that talk about what we call classic answers. And I put it nice and big in red because I kind of wish we wouldn't talk about classic answers, because classic answers is specifically today for Copilot Studio. It is only Copilot Studio. And classic answers in its most like very basic format in Copilot Studio, I'm able to kind of go in there and upload a PDF document. I'm going to say this PDF is my source of truth. It's my knowledge base. That is it. So if this PDF in this example, as you're seeing some of the live content there, it's going to be asking things like, hey, I need a new work device. What is the best possible work device? And this PDF talks about all these different devices. And it's going to say, if you need a work device, our company policy says you should probably purchase a Surface Pro 9. That is the best possible work device. I think it's a Surface Laptop 7, but sure, whatever your FAQ says in there. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go use it that way. But that's a basic classic answer. It's looking for the answer inside of that document, over and done. There's no Gen AI. There's no like extra thought process. So if I was to take it to the next level and say my follow-up question, which you kind of see inside of this little video right here, the little GIF, it's going to say, hey, what about for my 7-year-old gamer? What device should I buy? And it's going to go in there and it's going to say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't answer this question right now, right? Because, and it depends on how you set it up and how you set up your agent. But my point here is that it's not reasoning. It's not giving you any types of ideas, because in that FAQ, that PDF, that's my source of truth, it doesn't have anything about 7-year-olds. It doesn't have anything about gamers or kids as gamers in there. Okay, but generative answers can do that. All right, so let's kind of go back to that whole same model of what we were talking about. If I ask for it, hey, what work device should I buy? It's going to say Surface Pro 9 because that's your work device. Check. Then I'm going to say, okay, now I have a 7-year-old who is really into gaming. What should I go and what should I get? In this case, now what it's doing, it's using generative answers, going back to that PDF or that source of truth, whatever that document is or whatever I'm pointing it to, and looking for an answer. If it can't understand an answer, it's actually going to reason around the content, the question that you're saying, and then it's going to provide the Gen AI answer back to you and say, hey, you should probably use a Surface Go 3 or a Surface Laptop 7 or something else, right? So whatever it might be, but now you're getting a little bit more of a Gen AI type answer, which is phenomenal, especially when you're trying to simulate a specific type of experience, right? Something that might not be normal. Like I had somebody that was working on creating a schizophrenic patient. Well, there's going to be a lot of Gen AI usage there, right? Or you're creating a tutor bot that's going to go and support a customer or a student around multiple different topics. There's going to be some good use of Gen AI in there. All right. Then maybe the most popular one, which is what we call tenant graph grounding for messages. In other words, when you see tenant graph grounding or graph grounding, my brain instantly goes into SharePoint. It is the easiest example of what graph grounding is. So graph grounding is basically creating an agent. In agents, in this case, it could be SharePoint agents, it could be agent builder, it could be studio, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to say this SharePoint is my source of truth. This document is my source of truth. This document library is my source of truth, right? So I'm pointing it to SharePoint. Now I'm going to pause for a second because I'll get the types of questions that say, well, if it's going to be a document, why don't I just point it to the document rather than why would I want to point it to the SharePoint? And it's simple. Do you want dynamic content versus stagnant content? There's a place and time for both. So if you have a, let's just pretend a policy finder, and this policy is what feels like 400 pages of a PDF. And we know that those policies are not changing this fiscal year. That is set in stone. Those policies are gold. You can upload that document and just use classic answers. That makes absolute sense. It's easy, right? But if I'm working on all of a sudden, I'm changing policies 24/7. I have some new AI policies, or I have some new policies around procurement and purchasing and this and that. It's so much easier to just go and add the correct documents into your SharePoint site, and then that's keeping it dynamic. It's keeping it up to date all the time. So that is why tenant graph grounding for messages is absolutely just gold. And then there's the last. Yep, go ahead.
I got to interrupt you for a second. Great question in the chat.
Shock,
what do you mean by the word tenant? What is a tenant?
So a tenant, in this case, we're talking about your Office 365 or your M365 tenant, right? Every organization has a tenant. So for us in Microsoft, you have our Microsoft tenant. If I'm working with, let's just say Georgia Tech, well, Georgia Tech has a Georgia Tech tenant, right? That is their environment for all things Office 365 in there. So I want you to think of that as your overall graph. Dwayne, is there a better way to explain that?
Yeah, it's your bubble. It's your bubble for your school, for your university, that you subscribe to Microsoft to have. It's all your teams are held in the same bubble, your mailboxes, your OneDrives, all those things. And sometimes in nerd terms, we refer to that as a tenant, like a building that's just for you, but it's virtual. And so when he says tenant grounding or grounding in the graph, if you recall, we had vocabulary words way back when. If you're new here and you're like, what the heck is he talking about? Vocabulary words. Like our first session ever, I think we did vocab words. And grounding means I'm going to let the AI have access to some information that it ordinarily wouldn't know. And that is a process called grounding, or you saw in the chat, retrieval augmented generation. So we're getting super geeky. But when he says tenant grounding, it means I have a SharePoint site. That SharePoint site lives in my bubble. It has valuable information in it about policies and procedures. I want to build an agent that can look at that information and answer questions specifically about that topic. Technically, that process would be graph grounding. Sorry, I'm trying to go slow here. You talk fast. We got to break it down.
Good. That was good. That was good. I even put there my geek level went up to 86% because of that. All right.
86. That's it.
I get extra points for throwing specific words out there. All right. So the next one is autonomous actions. This will be super easy, right? So first of all, nothing for you guys to worry about just yet, but I just want to paint the picture around autonomous actions, right? This is coming very, very soon. It's in private preview right now. We have a ton of customers that are testing this out. So I'm going to give you like my very high level kind of version of what will be possible with autonomous actions. First of all, let's just be very clear. This can only be done in Copilot Studio today, right? Eventually, very, very soon. It's going to be only Copilot Studio because this is a little bit more on the pro code side of the house. This is where, imagine where I can create an agent that stands between whoever sent an email and me. And it's in the middle and it's reading that email and it's analyzing the email before it even gets to me, and it's automatically seeing, hey, this is an email that deals with invoices. And all of a sudden, now it's going to go and automatically forward it to another agent that's going to deal with procurement. And then all of a sudden, it's going to notify in Teams a procurement person saying, we've got a new invoice. I went over here to Carlos. Here's who it's coming from. It's going to fill out some Excel stuff in there or some type of database in there. Then it's going to notify me. Not only is it going to send me the actual email, it's also going to send me a notification inside of Teams. And then it's going to go and trigger something else. My point is, you see the tasks, the automation, the triggers, the flows, the multi-aspect of different agents working with each other. This is insanely cool. But private preview hasn't come out yet. It is in the process. Just kind of be ready if you really want to tackle some serious business processes. This is what you're going to want to be looking at in the very, very near future. Okay. I've got only 2 more slides, I promise. Now what I wanted to do is, I'm going to flip back and forth so you can see this. I wanted to break this down into 2, SharePoint agents and agent builder. Now that I explained exactly what web grounding is, what graph data is, how things are working, classic answers versus Gen AI answers, etc. What I wanted to do, because we get this question a lot, it's like, okay, which one do we use? Well, the answer is probably depends on what you're trying to create, because you can go in multiple different directions. So I want you to play with everything. Go and create a SharePoint agent. Go and create an agent builder. Go and play with Studio, right? And see what makes the most amount of sense based off of your use case. So I get asked, Carlos, help me understand SharePoint agents. What is it exactly? What is this going to do? How much is this going to consume? I'm going to get right to the point. When I create a SharePoint agent, it's going to consume 32 messages. That is because it is using tenant graph grounding. If I was to break down the math there, I'm trying to not do a math problem on this slide, but it's 2 messages for your generative answers, right? This is your dynamically generated response. It's going back and forth. And then because it's leveraging your dynamic content, which is SharePoint, right? In that case, it's using about 30 messages. Here's the kicker. If you have an M365 Copilot license, it is 0. This is why we've been pushing M365 Copilot as much. You don't have to worry about this at all. This is once you are ready to really set things up so people who are not licensed for M365 Copilot and you want to create agents that work with them, if they happen to be SharePoint agents, this gives you a good understanding of how much it could cost. I want to just dive in deep here. Notice how there's no web grounded in here. This is nothing more than Gen AI and tenant graph. That's it. Nice and basic. All right, I got one more slide, and I know we've got some really good questions coming up. Let's look at that same scenario with Agent Builder. Same thing applies. If you have an M365 Copilot license and you want to use an agent that someone in your organization created, check. You are good to go. It is gonna be 0 usage in there. Like it's not gonna go and count against your messaging packs or your PayGo or anything of that nature, right? So in this case, it is absolutely the way to go. But if you want to create something for your users who do not have a license, you're like, hey, I created this insanely awesome policy finder, and I think it's going to be used by some people. A lot of people might be ignoring it. We still want to give it a shot. Great. Then you can go and you can eventually deploy this, right? Share this out with the masses in there. And then what I did was, depending on your question, notice how it says utilization rates depend on type of agents and prompt. So depending on your questions in here, you're going to be able to say, hey, if it's a web grounded answer, it's not going to burn anything. It's 0, right? I purposely left classic answers in there because I already said, hey, this is only for Studio, not for Agent Builder, but I wanted to put it in there because it's not a feature of Agent Builder today. You can do generative answers and you can do tenant graph grounding with Agent Builder. Okay, notice how autonomous is not in there. I already said this. Autonomous is part of Studio and only Studio. So now you see kind of the parameters. What can I do in SharePoint Agents? What can I do in Agent Builder? Well, these are the 3 things that you can do. If you're licensed, here's how much it's going to burn. If you're not licensed, then we're looking at it's either going to be 2 based off a question, or it could be 32 in there. You have to believe me when I say I took about 10 different PowerPoints to come up with these slides, and try my absolute best to simplify this. I know it's not easy. Trust me, I'm working on simplifying this even more. I'm not going to overcommit, but I'm going to say it out loud because I really want to do this for you guys. There's a phenomenal person internally who created a agent that basically does the math of how much is this gonna, if I do this and this and this, how much is this gonna consume? So I'm working really hard. I could totally recreate it, but I wanna cheat and I wanna see how she created it and what resources she was doing. And as soon as I can have that, I will share it with you guys so you can create your own version of this. And you are absolutely right. This is the Carlos version for dummies being me in this case, because I wanted to simplify this so anybody can kind of understand this, but I had to simplify this for myself first, just because I felt like if I didn't get this, nobody's going to get this. Hopefully that helps. I just wanted to kind of just go back and forth. Agent Builder, SharePoint Agents, you guys will have this slide. Hopefully that helps. I purposely didn't go into Copilot Studio. I'm going to give you the one-liner for Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio does it all. That's where you should probably be. That is where you want to work. It is an awesome tool, but not everybody's ready for it. So this is why we say start here, and after 2 weeks, I promise you're going to be like, give me more, and you're going to go right to Studio. If you want to get a little geeky, like us, you can go right to Studio and start playing with it. It's a $0 SKU to kind of go and get started. So definitely look into that. Okay, Will, Dwayne, give me some softballs. I saw the chat go crazy. I didn't see fire Carlos, but I'm sure some were thinking it. What do you think?
I mean, we got 15 more minutes. It could happen.
Yeah, he's still time. There are a lot of questions around just billing and what non-licensed users can do. We will probably get you more information as things unfold. The ability for non-licensed Copilot users to create agents is still rolling out. So there still will be a lot of information coming. There's going to be a lot of reporting and governance and things like that will be coming as well. We'll talk about in the upcoming months of Club Copilot. So stay tuned. If you do want to have a conversation more around the admin side and how to set it up, message your CSAM and let's put that together on a separate call. I think that'd be the best way to do it.
CSAM, your AE, your account team.
Yeah, any one of them.
You name it.
I could share it.
Carlos.
I have it on my screen. Greg had a great question around that because there's the tiers, we would say. So you see the very top of Carlos's chart here says web grounded answers is 0, right? That is something that all users will be able to do. If you have a public website that has valuable information on it, you could reference that website and build an agent that talks about the content, uses that as its data source. We talked a little bit about grounding earlier. When you create an agent, you get to determine where that agent is grounded. Like, what does it use for its data source? And it doesn't cost anything to say, go use that State Department website with a bunch of policies on it. That's still pretty awesome, I think. Curious what you all think. Let me know in the chat what you think. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Please comment.
Well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna address. There's a great question over here. I'm going back to it. Kathy was asking it. How do I figure out if I want my agent to be built in SharePoint Agents or Agent Builder or Copilot Studio? So, Kathy, we should probably have made this into a slide. Room for improvement, maybe next time. But I will tell you, there's maybe 2 or 3 questions that we ask ourselves all the time. Number 1, I want to ask myself is, what knowledge base am I going to be using? If it's the web, if it's actual documents, where does it live? Is it a SharePoint site? Because that's going to help me, first of all, that's maybe the first question I ask. That's going to help me decide kind of like, where do I want to go? Because if it's a SharePoint site, technically I can use all three. If it's a specific document, it's got to be Copilot Studio. If it's going to be, hey, this is just an experience, there is no knowledge base, I would just want to create something super cool, that's probably going to be Agent Builder, right? So it depends. I go back to what is your knowledge base, if you have one. The other thing that I look at is who's going to use this agent. If it's internal, it's going to be SharePoint agents, it's going to be Agent Builder, or technically it could be Copilot Studio. But the second that you start saying, oh, okay, it's going to be parents, it's going to be incoming students that are not a part of my institution yet, it's going to be, I'm going to put this in the World Wide Web, I'm going to put this tied to some other application. When we're talking about external resources, it has to be Copilot Studio. Agent Builder and SharePoint today is specific to your tenant, to your environment, to your M365, to your institution, right? So those are the kind of two questions that I ask. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this, Kathy. I love the fact, and I hate it too, that they look very, very similar. So when I create something in Agent Builder or SharePoint agents, and then I realize, this should probably be in Studio. It is very easy to go, I'm copying the description, I'm copying the instructions, and I'm pasting it over. Like, there's nothing crazy. You can switch easily back and forth. So it comes down to your personal use case. And this is why I said, get with your account teams, because you could really do a great job at creating a little bit of a strategy. Like, what are you trying to build? Where is this going to live? Okay, are we going to tie this to Paygo or messaging packs, or are we just going to leverage M365 Copilot? Like, these are questions you want to go and figure out, and that's going to help kind of guide you. So there's no right answer. It's just it's a use case by use case. Okay, that was my Kathy question. That was my favorite question so far. No pressure,
yeah,
guys.
The chat is going down a rabbit hole. Couple of things.
Bring them back, Dwayne. Bring them back.
I'm trying. A couple things. There was a question about Copilot Chat and attaching a file. That is built into Copilot Chat. You can watch the recording or the one that's on YouTube from last month. That is, I did that in the scenario discussion. Oh, you just leaked our next topic. Dang it, Carlos. Getting a little click happy with the slides there. So I showed, I took a meeting transcript, I converted it to a text file, I uploaded it to Copilot Chat, and I prompted it to generate a meeting summary. That is built into Copilot Chat, and that is a feature capability that's there. That is not connected to agents and message consumption. The idea would be, you've got a bunch of people. They all are in your bubble, and some of them have Copilot licenses and some of them don't. But if you want to build a bot, well, I'm going to use the term bot, even though Jethro doesn't want me to. You're going to build a bot, and the bot lets you create a very scoped, specific conversation that might be around data that pertains exclusively to your organization that's not public information. That is when you would create an agent grounded on a certain data set. Maybe it's stored in a SharePoint site or something to that effect. That would consume messages according to the chart that Carlos has on his screen. I hope that helps. If you created an agent, like I said before, if you created an agent that was grounded just on the public internet, that's not organizational information. That's public knowledge. That costs 0 messages. So you could create that. That is still powerful. And like Will kind of hinted at, that is still rolling out. I am seeing that now in some of my environments that I test with, and that would allow you to create a custom instructions for an agent, telling it how to behave and what to do. You could point it at a website and say, only use this website for your knowledge. That's going to perform grounding and retrieval augmented generation against that website. And you could build a scoped experience. It just wouldn't be connected to your tenant data, your bubble, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, those kinds of things. I hope that helps. Thank you, Will, for putting that in the chat. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to attaching files in Copilot Chat, Will just dropped the YouTube video for that. So like I said earlier, please like and subscribe and comment. Maybe now that's real.
Hey, Dwayne, some great question over here from Christopher Stanley. So I'm kind of going right to the bottom over here, which is how do you assign messaging packs to SharePoint or Agent Builder agents? So Chris, I want you to just pump the brakes for just a little bit. We are actually in the process of releasing a lot of this and releasing some documentation that'll actually walk you through this. We kind of avoided that right now just because I'm going back to I wanted to go down that rabbit hole, and we made an agreement when we started this call or when we started this actual group that we were gonna try to focus heavily on the end user side and not necessarily the management side as much. So maybe this could be a great topic for office hours, or what I would strongly suggest is, once again, just reach out to your account team and say, hey, can we set up some time to talk about exactly the management side of SharePoint agents versus Agent Builder versus Studio and such. There's incredible Power Plat teams that I would reach out to as well. So definitely do that. I'm just trying to not go down the M365 admin or Power Plat admin side and show people how to go and how to do this. But I hear you. And it's going to be, we're working, let me rephrase this. We're working on making it easier. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes there's room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement. This is what I say when I say things like I messed up. There's room for improvement. All right, I'm taking a look over here when we're talking about Agent Builder. Are we talking about Azure Foundry? No,
yeah.
We are.
That's a great question too. Agents there's a ladder that you can climb of progression of abilities to customize versus ease of entry. I don't know that a teacher or your average information worker needs to ever know or see Azure AI Foundry. But Agent Builder, built right into the Copilot Chat interface, gives them a really easy entry point to just create an agent that does a certain thing and talks about a certain thing and uses a certain data source as its knowledge for that certain thing. But if you want to progressively climb that ladder all the way to the tippy top for Azure AI Foundry, and you want to provide your own large language model and your own indexing and RAG and all those things, and like have very, very granular, very specific, like research level control over what that agent does, you can use Azure AI Foundry to do that. And that would be what we call a custom engine agent. And custom engine agents in the near future will be able to be published to Copilot Chat so users in your organization could use and consume them. So if you have a group of people that can build that, that's awesome. Agents you can move up and down that ladder as you need, as you see fit, depending on your requirements. But what we're kind of focusing on lately here is what can everybody do? Like what's easily achievable by all users, and clicking Copilot Chat, create an agent, and typing in a prompt and giving it some data sources is easily achievable. But I don't want you to think that you're limited there. Yeah, I need a visual of the ladder too. I need to find that.
Hey, Dwayne,
I think Jethro presented on that actually. Yeah, go ahead.
This is I'm changing topics for a second here. I just thought this was a good question here. Richard said, is there anything on the future roadmap to allow Copilot to access a video file and generate a transcript or thank you letter based on the content in the video file? So yeah. my brain kind of, and keep me honest here, because I know I've used something very similar. maybe I'm thinking way too ahead, but I'm thinking like Stream, for example. I have access to Copilot inside of Stream. Stream has all of the transcripts, has all of the information, has the actual video itself. So there's a Copilot button inside of Stream that I can go and I can query against the content in there, and I can say things like, "Hey, generate a cleaner transcript or create a thank you letter based off of this transcript." In there. That's kind of how I think I would do it. Am I missing something, or is there a better way of doing this, Dwayne and Will?
Were you reading the answer I had put in the chat for that?
I didn't read your answer. I'm sorry. Did you answer it?
I was just letting you go.
I just ignore your stuff, Dwayne. I'm sorry.
I know. I feel ignored. There's a Copilot in Stream. Justified. Yeah. If it transcribes it, I mean, you're working with something that needs text input. Stream can transcribe a video, and there's a Copilot that lets you ask questions about the video. You could very well ask Copilot, like, "Hey, based on this video, generate a summary, or generate a letter, or generate a YouTube video description, or something to that effect for that video." Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Carlos. I feel seen.
We are about out of time. Do we want to go to the next slide so we can show people what's coming?
Oh yeah, he already leaked it, but that's fine.
But yeah, we leaked it. Carlos, good job.
We're gonna get stuck in the rough. Try to wedge our way out of a sand trap. I don't know. I don't play golf very much. Carlos does, so he's probably
you play disc golf. I mean, it's the same thing basically.
No, it's not.
It's fake golf.
It's better than real golf, but
it's cheaper golf. Yeah. Yeah. Carlos will be at the fancy golf club with like a big, whatever play, like, what do they call? I don't even know what to call it. Some place where all the fancy players get to hang out. Me and Will be in the woods playing disc golf. Cause that's fun. We like it.
Yep. So take note of the date here. It is not a month away. It's 2 weeks away. So take note of that. We're going to twice a month instead of every month.
Yep. We're gonna alternate the style of the meeting, Q&A and use cases that you bring us on one of them, and then what's new and feature highlights on the other one. So we're gonna zigzag, alternate back and forth. But yeah,
also it's fun. I'm gonna stop the recording and then I'm gonna share this. Hang on.
Oh no. We're going.
Oh no, it's good news. Okay. Oh, someone else has to stop it. I can't. Dwayne, you gotta stop it. I can't.
Oh yeah, I got you. Hang on.
I'll stop presenting.
You are